and you were to hit Qurtuba or Qurtubi, you would actually find over 300 different scholars named al-Qurtubi. Qurtuba was nothing but a city that contained so many scholars that we had forgotten. Al-Qurtubi, right there, you could see at one of the most important tafsir. You're going to see for that ayah, that other ayah that we're going to be working on, he actually laid out for this ayah right here, he actually had just for the word, where's the word? Just for the word وَأَنْتُمْ سُكَارَى, he had 41 different points to talk about just for that. We're not going to go to all of the 41 points, but we'll try, inshallah, to see. So we're going to see this page right here frequently. Now, the very good thing is that there's something called tahqiq. I want you to look at this one. So what is it, tahqiq? So when al-Qurtubi wrote his book, we're going to go back to 325, and I want you to see it. We're going to see 325, and you're going to see what we're looking at. Okay, so this would be what al-Qurtubi had written. Okay, this is the ayah, and then this is basically his research, his tafsir for the surah. This would be called the matan. So matan would be basically the core of that book. But there's something really important that was done here. You see these little writings, these footnotes. What are these footnotes? Hold on, we're going to explain this because we don't want to just think that we just have a book and without recognizing the efforts that were actually done within the book. You could see that it was actually done with certain work upon it. Dr. Abdullah al-Turki and Muhammad Ridwan and Maher Haboush. What is that? And who are these? So they were actually doing a tahqiq. What is a tahqiq? So in a tahqiq, with whatever Qurtubi was writing, if there is a hadith, they would basically go back to every single book that contained that hadith, and then they would write the number of hadith, they would write the page number, they would write the commentary on that hadith, and if there was probably a quote from a book that he had quoted or that al-Qurtubi had quoted, they would go back to see where that quotation is cited in. So basically find a citation. And they would also compare using the different manuscripts for the book. So they would gather the different manuscripts, probably one in probably Germany, the other one was probably in London, and the other one was probably London, Germany. Why are the books there? Because when the colonizers came in, they didn't only confiscate the lands and the resources, but they also confiscated the knowledge resources. There are millions and millions of manuscripts in Germany, in Holland, in London, in France, millions of manuscripts there. A lot of the Muslim manuscripts are actually confiscated and are actually in different libraries in those countries. So when we would see, well, what does a person that studied Sharia also do? They would also gather these resources. And right now, you could actually contact these libraries, but you would have to pay, of course, to get a copy of those manuscripts. And then you would have to compare the manuscripts to make sure that the manuscripts that you would have, the different copies that you would have for one particular book, that you would cite the differences within those manuscripts. So let's say right there. So what did they go to? Look at that. They actually went over not only the manuscript, but they went through every single sentence. to find the citation, to comment on the hadith. Remember, this is a 21-volume tafsir book. This is one of their work. So we would just say, oh, al-Jami' al-Ahkam al-Quran, and then scroll, not recognizing the hours they had spent searching through each and every single one of these books just to find one hadith, just to find one probably narrator, just to find probably if it's a word that is not a frequently used word, they'll cite the meaning for it and what the scholars had said about it. Look at all the work that they would do. So we will be using this tafsir frequently while we were using it before, but we will still be using it. And I've actually done some highlighting so we could sometimes see and read to you, and hopefully one day you would also be able to go back to such footnote that seems very ambiguous and it seems very confusing to you. What are they saying? And even for a person that can read Arabic, if they're not specialized, they're going to be like, what is that? It's going to be nothing but Chinese, or I should say Malaysian. It's called Bahasa. The language is called Bahasa. I hope I don't have it wrong. Oh man, that would be so embarrassing after living here for a month. But anyway, so we're going to be seeing this, and I'm going to be explaining this so we could start the foundation of getting to know what these footnotes are and getting to know the foundations of understanding our own deen, because many would just think, and I would say one of the main reasons why we're having many, even within the Muslim community, jump on the wagon of teaching Islam without even having the knowledge and without having the expertise, is because the Muslim community did not and does not actually respect its ilm. Right now, Islamic knowledge, is treated like it's motivational speeches. We're really having like a 700 Club and another Pat Robertson and all of that. And it's like, wait a minute, what's going on here? This is important to learn how to find these resources. And that's what Gems of Light, inshallah, is going to be teaching. It's going to be teaching sciences of hadith, sciences of Quran, and recognizing who are these scholars? Who are these scholars that had put in a lot of time, a lot of potentials to teach Islam to the Ummah? How do we understand our resources to make sure that we're not confusing our visions and thinking that as long as I have the right narrative, or at least as long as I have the narrative that matches what I feel sounds right, you're going to be making sure that your feelings are actually going the right direction. Because remember, the Prophet ﷺ in the hadith, he actually said, you would not be a believer حتى يكون هواه تبعا لما جئت به. You would not be a believer until your own hawa, your own feelings would actually go in congruence with what the Prophet ﷺ had come with, the revelation. Let's go to this hadith. Let's go to that book again. But we're going to look at this ayah. What ayah are we doing? We're actually doing this ayah. فكيف إذا جئنا من كل أمة بشهيد وجئنا بك على هؤلاء شهيدا. A very important, let's see if this will open up again. It doesn't want to. Maybe someone can make the dua. We do this. Definitely doesn't want to. Anyhow, so a very important book, other than the tafsir that we were doing, is called Tafsir al-Biqa'i. Al-Biqa'i, I wanted you to say it, but I couldn't open it. But al-Biqa'i, he actually lived during the time of al-Mamalik and Ibn Taymiyyah. In al-Biqa'i, he had done something really important. Where's al-Biqa? Where's al-Biqa? I actually went to it. Very beautiful. Very, very beautiful. Anybody, another $1,000,000, also from Noura, to be given to you by Noura. Another $1,000,000. Where's it? Maybe I could say it in their accent. Ba'a. They call it ba'a. Where?
لبنان.
Lebanon. Exactly. Good job, Noura. Al-Biqa is actually Lebanon. It's in Lebanon. Very beautiful. Lebanon, to be honest, is one of the most beautiful countries. No matter where you drive, you are right at the shore from all the way from the north to the south. All you would have is always a beautiful view of the Mediterranean Sea. Very beautiful. Lebanon is very, very beautiful. So you would have what's in the north? What city is in the north? What city is in the north? What city is in the north of Lebanon? Who knows? Tarablos. Tarablos. Very beautiful. This is where I got my PhD from. Anyhow, so you would basically al-Biqa is actually in the southern part of Lebanon. So al-Biqai, he was in Lebanon, but he did a very important contribution in his tafsir. In his tafsir, although it's really sad that his tafsir didn't really get the publicity that it deserves. What he did is that he called it Nazm al-Durar. It's, and what it means, I love the way that he had actually, that he had, put the name of his own tafsir. Nazm al-Durar. What is Nazm al-Durar? Al-Durar are the pearls. And Nazm is basically the way that you would line up the pearls. It's like the way the pearls are lined up. Ladies, you could see that ilm al-tafsir is actually nothing but the gems and pearls. Maybe we could probably start, instead of searching for pearls and gold and jewelry, maybe we should right now recognize a new type of pearl. Those pearls. The pearls in the Quran and the tafsir is basically that magnifying glass that helps you recognize the way the beautiful pearls are organized and how the Nazm al-Durar fi tanasub, in the way the pearls are lined up. But what pearls? Basically the ayat. What is the relationship between this ayah and the ayah after it? So al-Biqai actually says the relationship between this ayah and this ayah actually says that the Lord Almighty does not oppress, not even or dismiss, not even an iota of a good deed that you would do. But then it takes us into some form of a lefta, some form of a change. So how would it be if we had brought in every single nation with the witnesses or the witness, and we had brought you on those to be a witness upon them? What does it take us into? So it would take us into, al-Biqai says, after it told you the foundation of haqq, the foundation of truth, the foundation of principle, that it would then take you, well, you would not find, even if you were to see oppression, whether the oppression came from parents or whether the oppression came from the relatives or whether the oppression came from the society that surrounds you, you would never find oppression coming from the Lord Almighty. And to take it, into recognizing that moment. فَكَيْفَ إِذَا جِئْنَا, how would it be when you're actually facing oppression, but you would not face oppression from your Lord Almighty? And when you would stand right before the Lord Almighty, so it takes you not seeing only what you were facing, but it would take you to recognizing that moment when you would face your Lord Almighty. There's a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ actually said that you would actually speak to your Lord Almighty kifaha. You would speak to your Lord Almighty kifaha, like there's no barrier between you and the Lord Almighty. In another hadith by Adi ibn Hatim, the son of Hatim al-Ta'i, he said that the Prophet ﷺ was sitting with him and he told him that by Allah and the one who has my soul in his hand, you would actually be before the Lord Almighty and there's no turjuman. There's no interpreter between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It would just be you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no interpreter. Now that moment is when فَكَيْفَ إِذَا جِئْنَا مِنْ كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ بِشَهِيدٍ. How would it be when every single nation had actually come with its own shaheed, its own witness? Who are these witnesses? They're basically the prophets. Every single nation would come with the prophet that it had sent to them, or that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had sent to them. And here, وَجِئْنَا بِكَ عَلَى هَؤُلَاءِ شَهِيدًا. And on you, Muhammad, will bring you as a witness on the Muslims that you had delivered the message. Now, there is a hadith, and a very important hadith. Let's look at this hadith. روى البخاري, the most important hadith narrator. What's his name? Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari. He had narrated that Abdullah, who's Abdullah? There are four important Abdullahs, four important Sahaba that are called Abdullah. One of them, at least just remember the first one, is Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Four Sahaba that are named Abdullah. They're called al-Abadila. Okay? Abdullah. That's Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. قال لي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Are you able to see what I'm reading? Yes. قال لي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم اقرأ علي. قلت أقرأ عليك وعليك أنزل. قال إني أحب أن أسمعه من غيري. فقرأت عليه سورة النساء حتى بلغت فكيف إذا جئنا من كل أمة بشهيد وجئنا بك على هؤلاء شهيدا. قال أمسك فإذا عيناه تذرفان. What happened? Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said, the Prophet ﷺ told him, read upon me. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was surprised and he said, you want me to read it on you? When it was revealed on you? And he said, I would love to hear it from someone else reading it. It's like, I want to hear it. And this is important. Sit together, even if you're a qari, even if you're a scholar, even if you are more fluent in reading, let someone else read so you can hear them. So you could take from you hearing yourself to someone else hearing it. If that's what the Prophet ﷺ himself had done. So Abdullah ibn Mas'ud obeyed. And he said, I read Surah Nisa until I reached, so how long was it? That was 42 ayahs. Well, it wasn't even 42 ayahs. When he got to this ayah that we're right now doing, he said, Amsik, stop. And he just paused. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud looks at him and his eyes were just full of tears. Why? Let's see. Even Imam Muslim, who's actually the student of al-Bukhari, let's see right here, let's look at number 3. And he said, Tafsir Ibn Layth, and he basically would tell us where it was also narrated. Al-Mu'jam al-Kabir, al-Tabarani, Al-Mu'jam al-Kabir, and al-Haythami. Let's see, so, that's number, okay. No, I confused it. Number 3 is this one. So, fi sahihihi, so this is the number of hadith for al-Bukhari. And عند Ahmad. Who's Ahmad?
Ibn Hanbal.
Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Ahsanti. Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Now, Ahmad ibn Hanbal has a very famous book. Who knows what that famous book is called? Al-Musnad. Al-Musnad That's the most important book that he had written. Al-Musnad is actually in 6 volumes, okay? And they were actually, the hadith were really written by his son Abdullah. That's why he would always start in the book, it would always, every hadith, it would begin with حدثني أبو عبد الله. حدثني أبو عبد الله, to mean his own father. Okay, Muslim, here we go. So let's continue. أخرجه مسلم. Let's see, Muslim also said, وقال بدل قوله or بدل قوله أمسك فرفعت رأسي أو غمزني رجل إلى جنبي فرفعت رأسي فرأيت دموعه تسيل. So Imam Muslim said, well, a small difference in the narration is that instead of, he said amsik, instead of the Prophet ﷺ saying amsik or stop, he said that another man, so he had risen his head, and another man, ghamazani. Ghamazani doesn't mean to wink, but ghamazani kind of like giving him a nudge, and then he rose his head. Like, why is he giving me a nudge? It seems like there was someone else. And just give him a nudge. It's like, look what's happening. And then he saw that the Prophet ﷺ's tears were just flowing down when he had heard this ayah. The scholars had said, بكاء النبي إنما كان لعظيم ما تضمنته هذه الآية من هول المطلع وشدة الأمر إذ يؤتى بالأنبياء شهداء على أممهم بالتصديق والتكذيب ويؤتى به صلى الله عليه وسلم يوم القيامة شهيدا. So, who's قال علماؤنا? This is al-Qurtubi saying, our scholars said, when al-Qurtubi is Maliki, but although yes, when a Maliki scholar says, our scholars said, he means the Maliki scholars, but here, out of respect, he's actually including all the scholars. And he said, quote, when the Prophet ﷺ was crying and having tears, it was because of the magnificence and the magnificent situation that this ayah was including, in where it has such a magnificent and such a grave encounter in such a big matter that all the prophets would actually be witnesses on their nations, whether they had delivered the message or not. And the Prophet ﷺ would also be coming in as a witness on Judgment Day. The Prophet ﷺ wasn't just getting that information, but he was really living it. He was recognizing the magnificence, the magnitude of that day, in where it would be that he would be a shaheed, whether they would be mu'adhabeen or muna'ameen, whether they would be either to be punished or they would be given the na'im, the reward of what they had done. Let's see right here when he says, قال علماؤنا, he said, al-mufhim. Al-mufhim. Al-mufhim is actually another book. So here's one thing, is that yes, there, al-Qurtubi, this Abu Abdullah al-Qurtubi, but there's actually another scholar that is the son of this scholar, or actually the father of the scholar, all right? His name is also al-Qurtubi, Abu al-Abbas. He actually wrote a book, it's called Al-Mufhim Sharh Sahih Muslim. What is that? So Sahih Muslim is in, give or take like 9 volumes. It's basically a book of hadith, okay? That Abu al-Abbas al-Qurtubi, he basically had done something similar to what Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani had done, which is, so he would take all those ahadith and actually do sharh and explain those ahadith. So this hadith right there, this quote right there, it was basically quoting from the scholars that he had taken, well, what does it mean that he cried? So how do they explain? What does it mean that he cried? How's and why is that even important to even cite? So that's why he basically want to tell you, well, from al-Mufhim. By the way, one of the professors, a female professor, she's a professor in hadith, her name is Dr. Maryam Saleh. She had actually done Kitab al-Libas, just one chapter, which is the chapter of clothing from al-Mufhim, just one chapter, and had done tahqiq on that, and she got her PhD on that with an honors, mashallah. All right, let's continue with this ayah. Let's right there. وفي الحديث من الفقه جواز قراءة الطالب على الشيخ والعرض عليه ويجوز عكسه. So what is he saying? So basically saying, well, what we learn also from that hadith is that it is permissible for the student to actually read and that the teacher would correct. And this is important to actually mention. One very important way in why long ago the ilm was probably deeper in people's hearts and people's minds is that they used to use a method, and it's still used today in Mauritania, in Somalia, which is that the student, before they would memorize, they would actually read upon the teacher, and then the teacher would correct them. And basically, even when they were to teach the class, the teacher would review and let the student actually read and read in front of everyone so everyone could hear, and then they would continue correcting the student's recitation or the student's understanding or, of course, explanation of whatever is done. So he basically said, min al-fiqh. This is not to say the fiqh to mean the Islamic legislature, but this is to mean part of wisdom, part of ilm, is that it's really important and it's permissible that the student would read for the shaykh. The shaykh to mean the teacher, and it would be important to do as well the opposite. And that's where he basically derived that idea from al-Mufhim, which is for Abu al-Abbas al-Qurtubi. And he said how Ibn Mas'ud, had recited on the Prophet ﷺ. Now let's continue in where you look at this ayah. فَكَيْفَ إِذَا where's okay, no, right there. And يَوْمَئِذٍ, and they would relate it with this ayah, in where just like this ayah, the ayah that we were just reading, فَكَيْفَ إِذَا جِئْنَا فكيف إذا جئنا من كل أمة بشهيد وجئنا بك على هؤلاء شهيدا. Says this is really similar to the other ayah that actually had mentioned in where the relationship between يومئذ يود الذين كفروا وعصوا الرسول لو تسوى بهم الأرض ولا يكتمون الله حديثا. Now this ayah, I want to look at this ayah, which is really right after it. Let's see right here. So يومئذ يود الذين كفروا وعصوا الرسول لتسوى بهم الأرض ولا يكتمون الله حديثا. So the relationship between this ayah and this ayah, what is it? So here that they are right in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this one, in where now it takes us into, well, what happens to those that had not taken the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala seriously? What happens to those that had forgotten the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So that's why the ayah says, on that day, those that had disbelieved in the Lord Almighty and Asaw Rasul and disobeyed the Prophet, peace be upon him, they would wish that the earth would basically تسوى بهم الأرض. What is تسوى? تسوى actually means where the earth would actually be equalized on them. What does it mean, equalized on them? In other words, they would be buried in the earth. ولا يكتمون الله حديثا. And they would not be capable of concealing any information or any words from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At that moment, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst the salihin and make us amongst those that would always remember the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would tell us that there are certain groups that done two things. كفروا disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. عصوا الرسول. Now, this is important to mention because when you look at Iman, it's not enough to just have faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because there has to be amal al-salih as well. Al-amal al-salih, you wouldn't really know what it means to actually act in principle and obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does it mean? Until you actually see what the Prophet ﷺ had taught you in application to know what it means to actually obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, عصوا الرسول would actually mean عصوا Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. It actually means that they disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. What would they wish? نسأل الله العفو والعافية. لو تسوى بهم الأرض. تسوى, where they would be buried on earth. Why? Because that was what just was their own situation. It wasn't long ago, but they were actually buried in earth just moments before that, until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had ordered Israfil to blow into the horn and they would basically go for resurrection. They were resurrected and then combined and gathered. وَلَا يَكْتُمُونَ اللَّهَ حَدِيثًا. And they would not whatsoever be capable of concealing any information. Why? Because their mouths would be sealed, and what would speak? Their own hands, their own thighs, their own body would be the witness upon them in what they did not want to admit. In another qira'ah, Nafi' ibn Amir, they read it as tasawwa. Tasawwa. In Hamza and al-Kasa'i, they actually read it as tasawwa. Tasawwa. Not here, our qira'ah in riwayat Hafs, tusawwa. 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 The other ones, tasawwa or tasawwa. So what does it really, are there any differences? So it really brings in, yes, it all would mean that they would be equal to or at the same level as they would be leveled on earth, basically. But then one of them would be speaking about it, that they would be, it would be done to them. And basically, tasawwa would be, they would be leveled. And in the other qira'ah would actually be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would be the one to actually just level them. That's it, they're done. And exactly like in Surah al-Naba, in where they would actually say, Ya laytani kuntu turaba. I wish I was just an earth and basically turned into dust, and I was never brought to recognizing my own fate. So here he would say, وَالْمَعْنَى تَمَنَّوْا لَوْ انْفَتَحَتْ لَهُمُ الْأَرْضِ فَسَاخُوا فِيهَا. And he said, but what that means is that they would actually wish that the earth would just open and just blow, or just at least swallow them, that would basically just level them on earth. Let's continue. وَلَا يَكْتُمُونَ اللَّهَ حَدِيثًا. Now, وَلَا يَكْتُمُونَ اللَّهَ حَدِيثًا is basically scrutinizing that when they would stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they would think that that's it, we're done, the story is finished. But then they don't recognize that there is nothing that you can actually hide, because all your body would witness on what you had done. Every single piece of you would witness that. And that's why they would say, Wallahi Rabbina, ma kunna mushrikeen, after recognizing that everything is witnessing what they had done. So they would just then cry out and say, Wallahi, by Allah, we were not associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because they would recognize that the only way to enter Jannah is to actually be a Muslim, is to be not associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they would then start crying out, by Allah, we weren't associating partners, because they recognized that there's no way out. There was only one cord, there was only one way, which is to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you didn't, you've got no choice. You'll only have one route, and that is the route to hellfire if you don't want to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقربوا الصلاة وأنتم سكارى. I want to take you into this ayah. What time is it? How much time do we have left? Noura, you're the TA, so you tell me.
Wait a minute. Okay, it's 7:50 Minnesota time.
7:50. Oh, so we have a whole 2 hours left. Okay, good. Or maybe until midnight, right? Let's look at this ayah. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقربوا الصلاة وأنتم سكارى. O you who believe, do not approach the prayer. I'm going to read the ayah. You know, I would say it like a shadow, like an outer ayah recitation, and then we'll go deeper, inshallah. O you who believe, do not approach the prayer while you are sukara, while you are drunk, until حتى تعلموا ما تقولون, until you would know what you are reciting, or so that you would know what you're reciting. Okay. ولا جنوبا إلا عابري سبيل, and not in a state of janaba, which is the state after when a person goes into basically the climax of a sexual desire. إلا عابري سبيل, unless you're passing by, unless you would take a shower. And if you are ill or on a journey, or if any of you were to actually come from the low area, we're going to talk about, remember, this is a wrong translation, okay? But this is how the outer, in a very simplistic, wrong translation would be if we were to say that. Or if you touched women and you did not find water, then do tayammum, dry ablution, from the earth, and wipe on your faces and your hands, for the Lord Almighty is all forgiving and all, well, afuwan ghafura, and well, he would be the best to dismiss and the best to forgive. So that's a horrible translation. We're going to go deeper, inshallah. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. But the question is, how is this ayah here related to the ayah before it? So the ayah before it was talking about when the Anbiya would basically come and be witnesses upon the nations, and then these people would basically wish that they were leveled with the earth. And then here, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la taqrabu as-salah, and now it's giving me legislature on what we should do in prayer. How is that even relevant? Yes, let's look at it. So when the ayah was telling you right there the different relationships between you and the orbits around you, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with the relatives, we talked about that, then it takes you into recognizing, listen, that relationship, you're going to be encountering, yes, you're encountering Allah, you're encountering people, you're encountering all these different things. Yes, that encounter where even the prophets would actually encounter Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on Judgment Day, and you would encounter that reality. And even those that had forgotten, that had dismissed, that had basically ignored the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they would encounter their own fate. Now it's all about encountering here. Encountering. One, encountering the realities of what people had committed. Two, encountering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you're in front of them, encountering the prophets. Three, encounter the disbelievers, encountering their own bad deeds. And four, it basically takes you into, well, for you as a believer, if you want to encounter and you want to have a personal relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it starts by making your salah in place. You want to encounter, you want to be in that type of shahada, in that type of proximity. There's no better proximity to be in better than salah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
So the word taqrabu, that means what again?
Taqrabu means to get near, okay?
Okay, sorry.
That's all right. So taqrabu means to get near, but we're going to talk about taqrabu because that's a very, I would say, that's a very shallow interpretation to actually read it in this context as don't get near. We're going to talk about it in just a bit. Okay, so here, لا تقربوا الصلاة is, there are two things to it. Number one is that it's taking you into what does it mean to not encounter salah? What does it mean to actually tell you, there's the inspirational piece of that ayah where it's telling you that if you really want to be in that close proximity with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then the secret is salah. Number two, in order to be in that close proximity, you would basically need to, yes, it's laying out a very important ruling, which is, well, don't approach prayer when you're drunk. Why? So you would be capable of understanding and comprehending what you're reading. But yes, we're going to talk about, we're just trying to connect the dots. Remember, Nazm al-Durar, we're trying to connect the dots, trying to look closely and go beyond the words. Okay, so yes, it does actually lay out, there was a context. Let's look at the context right here for a bit, and then we're going to connect some dots together, okay? Let's look at the context together really quick, all right? So yes, it was telling you that you don't want to approach and you don't want to be drunk while you're praying, and of course, because it was a common practice. Let's see, Abu Dawood narrated, Umar ibn al-Khattab, he had said, when the ayah was revealed, basically forbidding drinking alcohol, Umar ibn al-Khattab said, Allahumma bayyan lana fil khamri bayanan shafiya. Umar ibn al-Khattab, now remember, drinking alcohol wasn't just a culture. The Arab had actually considered drinking alcohol as an honorable thing. They drank alcohol and even made poetry of alcohol because it was seen as if it was their place of entertainment. So in the beginning, the Muslims themselves, they would actually read Quran, they would pray, and still drink alcohol. It was basically the culture. It wasn't until the ayah, the different ayat were revealed in right here, حتى تعلموا ما تقولون, in where Umar ibn al-Khattab just made a dua, Ya Allah, give us the clear and a clear بيانا شفاء اللهم بين لنا في الخمر بيانا شفاء or شافية. Give us a clear announcement of what you want us and how you want us to relate to alcohol. So that's when this ayah, يسألونك عن الخمر والميسر, which is الآية in 219. So Umar فدعي عمر فقرأت عليه. When that ayah, يسألونك عن الخمر, so that was the early part of it. يسألونك عن الخمر والميسر, and it was basically يسألونك عن الخمر والميسر قل فيهما إثم كبير ومنافع للناس. What happened? When that ayah was revealed, it didn't actually, let's read that ayah. يسألونك عن الخمر والميسر. They ask you about alcohol and gambling, whether they wanted to know whether they were actually ethical or not. Look at this. قل فيهما إثم كبير. Tell them that there's actually a lot of sin within it. وإثمهما أكبر من نفعهما. End of that, at least portion of revelation at that time. What does it say? And the harm in them is bigger than the good in it. Now, from that quote, scholars of fiqh actually derived a very important legal maxim. What does it say? The qaida actually says, إذا تعارضت مفسدتان روعي أعظمهما ضررا بارتكاب أخفهما. Whenever you would have two evils, we would take in consideration the bigger evil, and even if that means going through basically the lesser evil. In other words, is there any good in probably having liquor stores? In Minnesota, a lot of the liquor stores, believe it or not, but a lot of the liquor stores are actually owned by the government, by the city, because they would have these liquor stores basically bring in profit for the city hall, believe it or not, a lot of the liquor stores. It's really strange, but it's really strange how the government would actually own liquor stores. Anyhow, even though a nonprofit organization is not supposed to have a business. So even if Gems of Light, let's say we wanted to own, we're talking about here legally, let's say Gems of Light wanted to, I don't know, have a business open and let the revenue and let the profit that comes in actually sponsor Gems of Light. That's illegal. That's illegal. But the government is actually owning all these liquor stores to fund the city hall, whatever. All right, let's go out of that. And Umar ibn al-Khattab, فدعي Umar. That's when Umar ibn al-Khattab, he basically, Ya Allah, give us that clarity on what is the ruling of that. فكان منادي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا أقيمت الصلاة نادى ألا يقربن الصلاة سكران فدعي عمر. So what happened? Then that ayah was basically stage 2 of the revelation of how they were supposed to relate with alcohol. Stage 1 was what? يسألونك عن الخمر والميسر. Stage 2, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقربوا الصلاة وأنتم سكارى. Stage 2 was do not approach prayer when you are drunk. So that's when the munadi, basically like a person that would walk around the city announcing, do not pray when you're drunk. But Umar ibn al-Khattab, something in him just wasn't feeling that was the end of it. So Umar ibn al-Khattab actually made the dua and started asking, Ya Allah, give us more clarity about what do you want to consider khamr, that is. What do you want to consider alcohol? So that's when the ayah in Surah Al-Ma'idah said, فَهَلْ أَنْتُمْ مُنْتَهُونَ? Are you now done with drinking? Now here's one thing. When you're looking at drinking and alcohol drinking, it was such a huge culture. Let's look at this one. It Tirmidhi narrated عن علي ibn Abi Talib. He actually said, Abdurrahman ibn Auf, now Abdurrahman ibn Auf, remember, he's actually one of the 10 people promised Jannah. All right. So he invited them over and basically gave them some alcohol, and it was definitely like, he's a whole feast right there, and they were all drinking and all of that, and then it was time for salah. So then Ali ibn Abi Talib, he was basically put as the imam. And then he read قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ لَا أَعْبُدُ مَا تَعْبُدُونَ وَنَحْنُ نَعْبُدُ مَا تَعْبُدُ. That's a part of at least this portion of it. He said, oh, you who disbelieve, I don't worship what you worship, but we worship what you worship. We worship what you worship. That's kufr right on the spot. But he was drunk. He wasn't even aware of what he was saying. All right. So you could see that's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had revealed this portion, which is what we're reading right now, the part about Surah Nisa, right there. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقربوا الصلاة وأنتم سكارى. That's when it was actually revealed. قال أبو عيسى هذا حديث حسن صحيح. Who's Abu Isa? $1 million. Abu Isa is a Tirmidhi. A Tirmidhi is from what country? Who knows what country Tirmidhi is from? Anybody from Uzbekistan? A Tirmidhi is from Uzbekistan, right? And until today, it's actually called Tirmiz, okay? Abu Isa said, Hadithun Hasanun Sahih. Let's see right here, Sa'id ibn Jubayr. He actually said it was part of the Jahiliyyah, it was part of the pre-prophetic era that they would basically kind of nasu ala amri jahiliyyah. It was basically everybody was still practicing the same culture of the pre-prophetic era where they would actually drink, and they would basically continue that culture, and until حتى يؤمروا أو ينهوا, basically until they were ordered to stop, to do, or not to do. And that's why they were continuing to drink alcohol at the beginning of Islam, and basically until the ayah was basically giving them that there's some good and some harm in it. So when, for example, they would say, well, there's actually good, it would give us a good profit to basically help us in getting in our budget and more income for the city, or probably for your income. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you, well, yeah, we recognize that there's some profit in alcohol and probably some good in it, but just because it actually has more harm, that's what we're going to consider. So we would get many times, some sisters would actually tell me, guess what? We actually have studies that say that drinking some alcohol actually has some benefits, and some studies say that those that drank alcohol, that they would actually have a higher and a longer lifespan. We would say ithmun kabir wa manafi'u linnas. There may be some studies that probably said that there's some good and some benefit, but we're going to consider the bigger harm. So we're not denying that there might be some benefit, economical benefit, maybe even some benefit that it does, but at the end of the day, ithmun kabir. The ithm, the sin, the transgression, the harm is bigger. So therefore, they would basically weigh out the good that is probably there, and we would consider the bigger harm. So here, when the ayah, إنما يريد الشيطان, what? أن يوقع بينكم العداوة والبغضاء. Shaitan wants to and uses العداوة, animosity, البغضاء, well, العداوة is more aggression, البغضاء, animosity, in order to create divisions within the society, and also al-khamr is a tool to create more of that. So this is just an idea. Now, the relationship between this ayah and the one before it, and he says, let's see right here, he says, وَجْهُ الْإِتِّصَالِ وَالنَّظْمُ بِمَا قَبْلِ. The relationship between this ayah, which is the ayah in where it's talking about يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تَقْرَبُوا الصَّلَاةَ, and the ayah before it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala related it with the ayah, and where how you would relate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how you would encounter Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on that day. And he said, and most of the scholars had regarded that what is actually meant by sukur is really al-khamr. Wait a minute. Remember, Noura, when we were saying, لا تقربوا الصلاة. Remember here? And you said, well, what does لا تقربوا actually mean? Now we're getting to it. This is important because لا تقربوا, is it that we shouldn't be getting near? This is a metaphor. This is not to say don't get near only as a metaphor to mean don't get close in proximity. But this actually takes us somewhere else. This takes us into recognizing that there's a certain relationship between you and Salah that visualize it. Yes, there is one side in where it's not a metaphor. There's one side that it's to be taken literally, that you should not actually pray and even engage in prayer when you're actually drunk. Well, the reason to it is because the whole reason why you were supposed to be praying is really حتى تعلموا ما تقولون, so you would understand and comprehend what you're saying. But there would be no point to your prayer if you weren't able to understand what you were saying. And that's why it's really important to understand the Lugha Arabiya in the Quran, understand the prayer, relate to the Salah, and try to focus, try to learn the tafsir of the words, try to learn the fiqh of the words, because the more you understand, the closer you will get to your Salah, or the closer you will get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes. This is important. If you really want to connect and completely penetrate in your relationship in your Salah, there's no way until you actually understand more. And that's why your key to higher and an elevation in your spirituality is talab al-ilm. Talab al-ilm. It removes all that murkiness from recognizing the world around you. Talab al-ilm is key to getting you close. Remember when it said لا تقربوا الصلاة, let's flip the ayah. It would actually mean here حتى تعلموا ما تقولون. So if you want to تقرب الصلاة, if you want to approach prayer, you want to get closer to prayer, you want to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, well, the key is learn what you're saying. The key is learn what you're saying. The key is learn your deen. The key is learn the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The key is talab al-ilm. That's the key. Because if you don't actually use that key, then although you're not the same as a drunk person, but the person is really going to be at the same level of unawareness. They're just right there saying gibberish and they're not even recognizing it. They're not relating to their salah. Their heart is somewhere else because their mind is somewhere else. Because their mind, their body, and their heart and their ruh is somewhere else. Now let's see. I'm going to take you back to Tafsir al-Qurtubi so we can see it again and actually see, does a sukur, and this sukur, which basically, the word in that ayah, majority of the scholars had actually said is sukr al-khamr, is to mean that it's talking about sukr al-khamr, that it's the alcohol that gets you drunk. Well, in al-Dhahak, he actually said, well, actually, this is not necessarily talking about alcohol. He said it's actually talking about sukr al-nawm. It's when you take a certain stage in sleepness and you're basically unaware. So in other words, you're sleepy and you're right there standing, but then it's talking about a certain stage of sleep. Wait a minute, where did you get that from? Let's say he took it from a hadith. He said, well, the Prophet ﷺ actually said, إذا نعس أحدكم في الصلاة فليرقد حتى يذهب عنه النوم فإنه لا يدري لعله يستغفر فيسب نفسه. He said, well, the Prophet ﷺ said, quote, if any of you were in salah and you get sleepy in salah, then sleep until the sleepiness goes away. For you don't know, maybe you would لعله يستغفر, maybe you would ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness, or you might actually say some profanity even about yourself, and you might actually swear at yourself without knowing because you're so sleepy that you're unaware of what you're saying. Let's see where he actually gets that. So is that hadith actually sahih? Let's see. So this is footnote number 3, and he said, أخرجه أحمد. It's weird how he didn't put Bukhari Muslim first, but he was supposed to put Bukhari Muslim first. But anyhow, al-Bukhari Muslim min hadith Aisha. So the hadith is narrated by Sayyidah Aisha. The hadith is sahih. It's in Bukhari and it's in Muslim, and certainly in Musnad Ahmad as well. Look at the number of hadith. Can you imagine? This is the number of hadith. Okay. All right. So let's say. And the question is, when he says that it's actually sleeplessness, it was sleep. And in other words, this is not talking about getting drunk, but this is talking about sleep. Let's see where that quote, and it seems like it's in more than one place. أحكام القرآن لابن العربي. أحكام القرآن لابن العربي. Ibn al-Arabi is a Maliki scholar. Ibn al-Arabi, his أحكام القرآن, his tafsir, that tafsir is almost 5 volumes. Okay, and in that tafsir, he basically focuses on the legislature in Quran. In Muharrar al-Wajiz, أخرجه الطبري. Let's see Ibn Atiyah. Ibn Atiyah, he said, well, actually, this quote, well, not the quote itself, but this interpretation, he said, this is daif. That's a very weak interpretation. Because why? He said, قال ابن العربي, and he quotes, well, Ibn al-Arabi, well, Ibn Atiyah, not Ibn Atiyah quoting, but Ibn al-Arabi, not Ibn Arabi. This is not the Sufi scholar. Ibn al-Arabi is different than Ibn Arabi. Ibn al-Arabi is a Maliki scholar that used to live in Ishbiliya, in al-Andalus. And he actually said, إن كان أراد أن النهي عن سكر الخمر نهي عن سكر النوم فقد أصاب. So he basically said, well, he didn't really want to reject or disagree with a dhahak right here. So he said, well, if he were to mean that what sukr al-khamr would lead to is really an awareness of when a person is asleep, and it's kind of like if they're drunk, they're half asleep, they're kind of like sleepiness, then he's right. But Ibn Atiyah said, well, that's really a little bit off, because the general word is when you are in a state of sukr, and the context of what that ayah was revealed for is really when people were drinking. So this sukr is related to drinking and not necessarily related to sleeplessness at all, or not being able to focus in your sleep. Yes, it is not it is the sunnah that if you're sleepy that you would take a time to sleep, but that's not to mean that this ayah is related to getting sleepy. Okay, let's continue right here. قلت, that is al-Qurtubi. He says, well, if what is referred to here in where the person that is praying, that they're supposed to approach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and approach prayer with their full heart and leave any distraction and anything that might distract them, whether it was we're talking about sleeping or getting sleepy, or حقنة وجوع. What is الحقنة? الحقنة, it's not الحقنة in the Palestinian accent. It actually means, what do they call that? Well, not a shot. My daughter says shot. الحقنة could also, what is that medication that it's medication that, forgot what it, Anyhow, but al-hukna here is not a shot and certainly is not a medication. Al-hukna is when you have the urge to use the bathroom. That's al-hukna, the urge to use the bathroom. So when you have the urge to use the bathroom, don't pray when you have the urge. Go to the bathroom and use your bathroom and do your business, and then make your wudu again and come back. Or jua, or hunger, or hunger. All right? وَكُلُّ مَا يَشْغَلُ الْبَالِ وَيَغَيِّرُ الْحَالِ. So he basically said, well, what the most important thing, and this is al-Qurtubi, look at that, smart. Al-Qurtubi was saying, well, the most important thing is to leave away any distraction, whether that was a natural urge, or whether that was hunger, or whether that was sleepiness, or getting sleepy. So that's why he said, well, the Prophet ﷺ actually said, if العشاء إذا حضر العشاء, listen to this, وأقيمت الصلاة فابدأوا بالعشاء. If you had supper basically ready, and also salah was ready as well, then start with supper, start with the food. Why? Let's go and see, is this hadith, look at this hadith, is actually in Sahih Muslim, narrated by Anas ibn Malik, who's Musnad Ahmad ibn Hanbal. And he said, so the Prophet ﷺ basically considered and took into consideration everything that might distract the person from having the focus on their prayer. So they would approach every salah and every ibadah and every worship with their heart, not distracted, but in complete aware heart, with having complete sincerity, and that way they will actually have full and complete khushu'. And he said that that's what would actually take us to bring in the main foundation, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the true believers, to be the ones to be successful, are those that had approached their salah when they were in complete khushu'. So what is al-khushu'? He said al-khushu' is to be in a complete heart, open heart, to recognize the words, to recognize and live and relate with the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this ayah right there is actually mansukha. What is mansukha? So this ayah that we just read, this portion of it at least, which is يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تَقْرَبُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَأَنْتُمْ سُكَارَى, is abrogated. What does it mean to be abrogated? Abrogation is only something that happens to ayat or certain ayat that are related to legislature. You can never have an ayah that is in aqidah be abrogated. That is a muhkama. Why? Because ayat that get abrogated, in other words, the ruling gets canceled out. It changes with another later ruling. That is abrogation. But never is a fact in aqidah ever canceled out. Because a fact is a fact. You could never cancel it out. You could never change the fact. But you can change the ruling, because that's an application. You can change the application, but not change the fact. So this ayah, لا تقربوا الصلاة وأنتم سكارى, was basically abrogated by the ayah, إذا قمتم إلى الصلاة فاغسلوا منسوخ بآية. So, but this portion of it, إذا قمتم إلى الصلاة فاغسلوا وجوهكم وأيديكم إلى المرافق, etc. So that one was actually, that piece of it was not abrogated. The other portion of it. Okay. Now here's one thing, is that when you recognize the different stages of how al-khamr was basically forbidden, it's also to give those that work in da'wah. The Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ هَذَا الدِّينَ مَتِينٌ فَأَوْغِلُوا فِيهِ بِرِفْقٍ. This religion is a solid religion. When you want to go in it, penetrate in it, do it gently. You can't take everything all at once. You can't be practicing on your salah, wearing the hijab, and probably trying to learn everything all at once. You're going to find it too hard on you. So take it and take it gently. Because if you were to take everything all at once, it's going to be too hard for you to take in, and you're going to find yourself really, as in the other hadith, إن المنبت لا ظهرا أبقى ولا أرضا قطع. لا أرضا قطع ولا ظهرا أبقى. What is المنبت? Munbat is basically a person that's using their mean of transportation, basically an animal. But then they're rushing so fast to get to their destination. What's going to happen? If they're rushing too fast, well, that animal is going to get too exhausted. And they're either going to die in the middle of the way. And if they die in the middle of the way because the animal got too exhausted to basically stay as a mean of transportation. So what's going to happen? They're not going to get to their destination. And they didn't even leave their mean of transportation. In other words, when you want to grow in your deen, you got to do it gently. And it's not based on, well, I'm not ready for it yet. It's based on taking it in where you recognize. Number one, many times people will tell me, well, I'm not ready. I'm not yet there. Why aren't you doing it? I'm still not ready yet. I'm still trying to take it bit by bit, etc. Now, one thing. The Prophet ﷺ taught us how to do that. And he said, ما أمرتكم به فأتوا منه ما استطعتم وما نهيتكم عنه فانتهوا. What does that mean? What I ordered you to do as much as you can. What I ordered you to leave instantly. So, things that are major sins, you leave instantly. But things to do, you can take it gradually until you grow bit by bit. So here, لا تقربوا actually means, here's the question that Noura asked, لا تلبس بالفعل. Do not engage in inaction. So this is not to actually get near per se. This is not talking about proximity, but this is actually talking about an engagement in action. An engagement in action. Now, why? Because لا تقربوا, if you were to say لا تقربوا, that's what would actually mean don't get close to. But لا تقرأ, not ru, that's what would mean do not engage in. You see it? We'll end right here, inshallah, because there's really a lot to say. Let's see, right there. Oh, wow. We still have a lot to say. We might actually stay on this ayah probably maybe 2 or 3 classes just on this ayah. But we're gonna, inshallah, also do Wednesdays because I'm excited to actually do the surah and complete as much as we can. Our life is short. We need to make sure that inshallah, before our death, we're going to finish, inshallah, all the Quran and have the tafsir for all the Quran, inshallah, there. We don't have much longer to live. So inshallah, we're going to continue as much as we can. Any questions? Oh, mashallah. A state of sukra, could that be really sleepy and tired as well? Yeah, it can be. So remember, it's all about it's all about being able to focus. If we were to have a Wednesday class, yeah, so basically would be at the same time as this time. Well, not this time, but basically 8:30 a.m. 8:30 a.m. my timing, Malaysian time. Your timing would be 6 p.m. So inshallah, yeah, it would still be on Facebook Live. It will be recorded. So even if you're not able to attend the in-person, inshallah, it will still be recorded. Definitely join us. So inshallah, it will be something that it will be on YouTube as well. Inshallah, it would be something that you'll benefit from. I'd be happy to answer also if you would like to unmute yourselves. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you would like to unmute yourselves. Go ahead. I guess no one has any questions. As a dean, do you have any questions? Okay. All right. So we will meet, inshallah. Salam to all of you. We miss you all. I really, really miss you all. Noura, you wanted to say something, dear. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say I'm trying to get down all the or a lot of the Arabic words. So if you could just slow down,
Oh, you okay. Well, oh man, you know what, Noura? We actually forgot to put the start summary. Oh man. Yeah, we were supposed to put that AI companion as well. So remind us next time. Maybe we could actually, all participants, we could probably do that AI companion. And next time, inshallah, remember that it would actually, that AI companion on our Zoom would actually allow us to have notes. So it would allow us to have notes. But even though we didn't, Noura, if we are to have that chat GBT, the YouTube would actually give us that. So it would still be there. So even if we didn't do it on there, we would still do it there. And the other part, remember there was that CC. So inshallah, we'll be able to do that as well to make it available for everyone, for those that are not understanding my accent. So we'll, just a couple things that we'll remember to do, inshallah. We'll do a summary and I will slow down, inshallah. I actually thought I was speaking too slow, but now you're telling me I'm speaking too fast. So basically, inshallah, we are at Gems of Light doing classes for those that would like to learn Arabic. I do also have, there are 14, well, no, 19 different videos that basically cover the 80% of the most frequently used words in the Quran. The code, I think it's called, I can get you that information. It's basically taking you into the most frequently used words in the Quran, and it basically helps you learn a lot about the Quran, inshallah. Hopefully that would be helpful, but definitely join Gems of Light, inshallah. We'll have at least the basic Arabic. Once you understand the basic Arabic, then you're going to start going, one level after another, inshallah. So I hope I answered that one. So any other questions? To join gemsoflight.org. Gemsoflight.org is how you want to join. And inshallah, that would be helpful. Inshallah. All right. So this is where we left off at. Remember, it's page 332. We still have a lot to cover. We're probably going to be staying on this area. Like I said, maybe 3 more classes, but inshallah, we'll benefit a lot. There's a lot to cover, and I'm excited, inshallah. Jazakallah khairan, everyone. I absolutely miss everybody, and inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will gather us again, and inshallah, we'll meet in person again, and inshallah, I'll bring you all to Malaysia too. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.